want to welcome everybody here and thank you guys for coming. Hello, Donna. How are you? I see Donna. I see, who else I see?
Let's see if I can
I'm
see.
doing well, thanks.
That is good.
Hi, Donna.
So, everyone, let's start off by saying, welcome to the Ask Professional series. It's put on by the BBPA to help support our community through this time here as we go through quarantine. For those that know me or those that don't know, I'm Anton James, and I'm going to be hosting today. And seek to discuss.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Ellen, hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'm Anton James. I'm going to be hosting today as we seek to discuss a challenging issue in our community specifically, and that's that of mental health. And I want to formally introduce our guest of today. Our prominent guest is going to be Stacy Ann Buchanan.
Hi.
English. Hello, Stacy. How are you doing?
Hi.
Yeah, she's distinguished and highly awarded actress and model and philanthropist and mental health advocate. Just name a few. She's been on TED Talks, TEDx Talks as a speaker, and numerous media and TV events across Canada, US, and the Caribbean. And in 2014, she added a filmmaker to her repertoire as she produced and directed her own multimedia documentary called The Blind Stigma, and which chronicles 5 members of the Black community and their experiences, including her own. But with that, let's go over to Stacy. Stacy, how are you?
I am great. Thank you for asking. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone's doing amazing.
I'm not so bad. As I said, I'm not enjoying the quarantine so much, but not too bad. But tell us a little about yourself, Stacy.
Okay, to piggyback off what you said, well, I was born and raised until I was 14 in Jamaica. Then I moved here to Canada. I lived with my dad and my brother. What else is there to say? Fun fact about me, when I first came to Canada, I went to Oakwood Collegiate, and I remember being laughed at quite a bit because my accent, you're gonna hear my accent comes up, my THs and stuff like that. And years later, when I met up with my classmates, they're like, no man, we didn't laugh at you. We loved your accent. We loved the way you spoke. So because of my accent, I was really shy. I just felt like I couldn't speak as fast as the other Canadian kids. And my brother was 7, so he picked it up right away. But for me, I struggled. And I found one subject that really allowed me to be myself, and I can be anybody I wanted to be, and that was drama. And from there, I pursued acting. So after high school, I went to Humber. I went to George Brown and I took theater. And then after that, I went to Humber and I took film and television. So my profession, deeply rooted, is with acting. Now, with this acting career, they told us the first time we went to, well, when I was in Humber, the teacher was like, you must be crazy if you want this position because you hear 99% no's in your life. And I was like, okay, I still want this. But I was always, there's so many doors that have been closed in my face over the years. And so while living in Toronto, I was like, I really want to do this acting thing. And I don't think Toronto's the best place for me. So I'm going to move out to Vancouver to pursue this career. And I'm going to give myself 6 months to become super famous like Halle Berry because we share the same birthday. So I must be destined to be famous as well. While I was living in Vancouver, the rush that I gave myself, the 6 months, I noticed changes in my body. Like I was doing things really fast, speaking really fast. I couldn't sleep. I wasn't eating. Or if I did eat, I was eating really, really fast. And my roommate said, she was studying to be a nurse, and she said, I think you're showing the signs of anxiety. And I remember going into my room, closing the door and thinking to myself, anxiety? White girls get that. Never heard of a Black person. This was in 2011. Ever heard of a Black person talk about anxiety? My symptoms got worse, and I decided to check myself into the hospital, and it did turn out that I had anxiety. They ran a whole bunch of tests on me, and it turned out to be anxiety. I remember that day vividly because it was the same day Prince William and Kate got married. I don't know if you guys remember that. But I remember that day because I was walking home and I was prescribed Valium. And I remember looking at that Valium thing and I was like, I remember doing a scene in acting school, and what they're trying to tell me is that Valium is a crazy people drug. They're trying to tell me that I'm crazy. And so I kept on repeating to myself, mind over matter, I'm going to beat this anxiety thing. And I thought I'd beat it for a week until it came back. There's a reason why I'm telling you guys the story. It came back so vividly. My anxiety was like, if you picture closing your eyes and if you picture your heart beating at 1,000,000 miles per second, and with each beat, your heart gets bigger, but it's in a cage, and the cage is getting smaller. That's how I felt. I felt like I was dying, but I was in control. I was really sick. I was hooked up. I was at the hospital. I was hooked on monitors. I had to bring them home. They tested my sleep patterns, everything. Eventually, I had to move back to Toronto. The fear of moving back to Toronto and not accomplishing my dreams and being a loser spiraled me into depression. And I want to wrap it up, but there's a reason why I'm here today, and I'm sharing with you on how to maintain your mental health during COVID. The depression stages came in two parts for me. The normal side that you know, the famous side that you know, the blinds are closed, you're not eating, or you're eating yourself silly, you're not taking showers, you're not brushing your teeth, you're not talking to anyone. But the other side came when I looked like this. And I made sure that I looked like this all the time. Hair done, nails done, wearing the most expensive clothes, going out partying because I was trying to mask that I'm sick. I'm really sick. Now to fast forward to my story, I am here because I decided that I realized that there wasn't a voice. And I realized that I couldn't be the only one in the Black community that's going through so much pain and anguish. And there needed to be some sort of platform for us to talk about it and for us to remove that mask or to remove that veil of shame that we so-called carry, that we carry all the time. Antoine, did I go off topic? But that's basically who I am and the reason why I'm here. But I like to tell that story because I want people to know that what I do is not something that is just, I'm taking this title and I'm running with it because mental health is in and, oh, let's be a mental health advocate. It is deeply rooted and I'm very passionate because I'm living it. What does a person who lives with mental illness look like? It's me. I have anxiety and I'm here.
Yeah, and so to answer your question, no, you didn't go off topic because really we want to understand, you know, sometimes we hear terms, but it's a term, it's logical, but it's not personal. So you gave us a nice, you know, aspect of how this is a real person. So talk to me about that. Why is that within our community? Why is mental health has such a negative stigma, particularly within our community? Why? Why do you think that is?
Because we're conditioned to be strong. We don't have anxiety, depression, schizophrenia. Those are dirty words. Those are words that are not in our language. When we automatically hear words like that, it's dismissed as you're mad, right? It's dismissed as you're not a part of society. You're not a viable part of society where you can contribute to society. You're easily dismissed and pushed aside. Mm-hmm. So we don't tackle it. We don't talk about it. And the language in our community really needs to change. But it's something that we just don't tackle. We just feel like we got to wear this mask and put on our armor of being the strong Black man and the strong Black woman. And everything that we go through, we got to push through and we just got to do it.
So let me ask you that. If that's what's the pervasive feeling, and how do you think we can overcome that? How can we change that perception or that thought in our community?
We can change that by starting to change the language around mental illness and how it is perceived. We can change that also by being compassionate and understanding and taking mental health, a topic, and making it something positive. Having more people speak up about it, when someone comes to you, for instance, and share that they're going through something, not to dismiss them or not to laugh or not to say, man up, or you'll get through this. It's taking a care. It's like taking mental illness in our community and nurturing it and knowing that we do go through our own struggles as well.
Okay.
I mean, there's more I can add, but
no worries.
I feel like I'm going, when I talk, I feel like I just go off.
You're fine. So let me ask you then, so within our community, clearly it is a challenge. What have you seen? There's a negative side, but what have you seen we've done to maybe help cope? Or what do we as a community do to work through mental health other than from a professional way?
That's a great question. You know, when you go to the hairdresser, I'm going to say hairdresser, the barber, You
Yes.
talk with your barber, you talk with your hairdresser, you go to church, you
Yeah.
talk with a sister, you talk with a brother,
Yeah.
you share some personal things that you probably wouldn't share with a family member, you wouldn't share with a coworker or friend, or just because you feel like they wouldn't understand. But I use a hairstylist and a barber as the metaphor, really, because, for instance, my mom is a hairstylist, and the amount of stories that she's heard, and
Mm.
I have a hairstylist. So when I go, you feel like you can just unleash a lot that is going on, and it's just like it's somebody that you can really talk to. And repeat your question again, because I'm going somewhere with this. But repeat the question,
I just, I was
please.
trying to figure, as a community, we have this
Yeah.
challenge, right? But how
Yes.
do we as a community, how have we traditionally utilize, or what resources or tools? You mentioned barbershop, maybe church.
Yeah. It's. I think what we need to do is we need to first create a safe space.
Okay.
And the safe space that we need to create starts within ourselves, starts within our homes.
Yeah.
You know, a prime example is when a teenager, say a parent has a teenager, and your teenager comes in saying, Mom, if they don't know the correct language, to say I have anxiety, or I'm stressed out, or I can't handle this. And then you rebuttal and you repeat that. You have a roof over your head, you have clothes on your back, your cell phone bill is paid. What is your problem? Back in the day, I used to walk 10 miles to go to school. I had to take water out and stuff like that. It's a different time, and we all have our own struggles. So we have to be compassionate, and we have to understand, and we have to put the care into our mental health. And I think because it's not a physical illness, right? It's not cancer, it's not diabetes, it's not me running down the street and breaking my leg. It's not something that you see that you can be like, okay, let me fix it, let me help you out. It's in your mind. So you have to treat it as much as the same way you'll treat a physical illness. And I think that's what our community tends to miss out on. We don't see it, so it's just like, what is it really, right?
So let me ask you another question. You brought up something there. It was kind of interesting. You said, what happens if they come home and say they're stressed out and so forth? How do we know what's the line? Because I've had my little one come home, and when he was 6 years old, talking about he's stressed because he didn't get. I said, hold on, top the foolishness, yeah, man. How do we know where it's something that is more light or something to take it more serious? Like, at what point do we say, the traditional, it's something we've got to take a further look at?
If your child keeps on repeating the same thing,
Okay.
keeps on saying the same thing, if you notice changes in their eating habits, their sleeping habits, the way they're dressing, just change how they respond, like little changes like that. And I think what we need to make mandatory in our homes is to really check in on each other. If we have a meal together, how are you doing today? How is everything going? And I think if we make that something mandatory, that the family, we come together, let's check it. Say every week, we're all busy, let's just check in with each other. Make that a habit.
Let me go one step further, because I think it's a very good point. But what else can we say? Because that is, when I go to church, it's the same thing. You'll hear, happy, how are you doing? And before someone even finish asking the question, they have a standard response. So what is a better question we can ask if we're checking in on each other to say, to really get to understand, like, is there something specific, how are you feeling about something, a topic, or is it, how do you react to something other than what's generally said on as a cliche?
I think we can take that cliche sentence. We can take that cliche sentence and we can put more care into it. We can put more action into it. Maybe hold your shoulder, maybe hold your hand. How are you really doing? Is there something you want to talk about? And maybe you can ask specific, how is it going for the holiday? How's the holidays treating you? How is being home during COVID? How are you coping? How is today for you? Let's be present in the moment. Let's say, how is today going? How are you feeling this hour? Be more, you can be more specific, but you can also put some action and put some care behind the normal, the cliche sentence, how are you doing? Because the number one thing people say is, I'm fine. And that's the biggest lie that people say. Millions of people use that all the time. You're fine. And we use it because we think you don't care. We use it because it's like, really, I'm going to tell you what's really happening in my world, and you're going to take the time out to even listen. Sometimes when we say, how are you doing? You just want a quick, I'm good.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a long explanation because nobody has time to take for the long explanation. We have no time. Lately, we just have no time. And I think COVID is showing you make some time, you know?
Well, that's very true. Speaking of traditional response, in addition to asking what it is, because traditionally, I don't know what your household like, but my household was when you're growing up, you know, something goes wrong, you have pain in your foot, well, take some tea and bust a prayer, and you can, it was a cure-all for everything. Other than asking somebody, is there, I don't know, is there songs that maybe help? Is there, what do you find, what did you also find was tools like that were helped in either understanding, is it a change in behavior? And how do you know if that change in behavior is not something they would naturally go through?
It's a layered question. I can speak from my personal experience when I was going through depression. I had a boyfriend at the time, and I didn't even tell him because I feared that he would leave me knowing what I'm going through. So the only place I felt safe was to talk to my father. And when I spoke to my dad about what I was going through, my dad said, drink some tea and read your Bible.
Yes.
When I went back to him 3 times. So the second time I went back, he said, don't worry, man, drink some tea, read your Bible, and pray. Okay, so I was drinking tea, I was reading my Bible, and I was praying. I drank so much tea, I could open a tea emporium. Okay, that still didn't work. I went back the 3rd time, and my dad said, okay, since you like to chat so much, how about you tell your business to strangers? That ignorant statement saved my life. You know why? I started telling my business to strangers. And the beauty about telling my business to strangers is that strangers don't know you from Adam. They're not going to judge you. All I needed was someone to listen to me, not someone to tell me, but you have a roof over your head, you drive a nice car, you have this, what you need to stress out for, what is really going on. I just needed to vent. I just needed to let out everything toxic and negative that was going on. So I think what we can do is when you ask the question, make time for the question. You know, listen to what someone has to say. And a lot of time, listen without judgment. Nobody wants to be judged, and people are so scared to share because you feel like my problem is not like yours. And another thing, stop comparing struggles. Stop it. Stop it. Your struggle isn't, you can say like, oh, but I've been through this, and I've lived in a hut, I lived underground, and but you've had a big house, and you're just struggling. We're trying to make it. We all have our own individual struggles, and we need to stop playing a comparison game. You know, so stop comparing struggles and just being open and being compassionate and take the time out to listen without judgment. Gotcha. That's all. And I know from my experience, the first person I shared this with was a lady in the park, and she just listened to me. And I felt so much better that day. Okay. I felt like a weight was just lifted off my shoulder because she listened without judgment.
All right. Well, first of all, let me put out to everyone out there, I'm going to be opening up for public. If you have any questions, by any means, let me know. Feel free to either put up your hand or feel to ask a question. Because the next thing I really want to get into is how we are, or how we're doing necessarily during this quarantine, and how's this affecting everybody.
Hello, Anton. Are you hearing me?
I am. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. This is the first time that I'm attempting to speak via Zoom. Stacy Ann, I've been listening to you, and it's bringing up questions in my mind. Because I had there was a basic question I had in my mind, but how should I put it? It's your answers to Anton has piggybacked on the specific question that I would like to ask you.
Okay.
And I would like to paint a scenario, and this is more specific to COVID-19, which is what your subject area is. And I am the front for somebody who has chosen to take a back seat, but with a desire to help her. Because I know of someone who works outside of Canada, and she has to be out of Canada at this point in time. So in essence, she is away from family, she's away from friends, and basically living on her own. She has not been able to forge any friendships, meaningful friendships.
Yes.
And so she finds herself being reliant on speaking with family overseas via WhatsApp or, about COVID. But without judgment, some of these family members are unable to really zoom in and appreciate where she's coming from. Not only because they too are handling the whole issue of COVID-19 and making the adjustments because we're into a new world order, but it's also perhaps the level that she may be at, because as you know, the natural thing is you pray, you meditate, you go to, well, even the church issue, you can't even use that right now because you're streaming, so there isn't that physical contact.
Yes.
So in essence, she is by herself in many ways. So my question is, because she's currently out of Canada, and then you raise the issue of the fact that the language in the community needs to change. It may be happening. So my question is, can you suggest compatible chat groups that she may connect with to help her over the hump of being away from family right now? And even sometimes family may not necessarily be helping her.
Yes.
So this is where you have the issue now of speaking with strangers.
Yes.
And identifying with groups who can address those particular issues that she may, at this point in time, be experiencing. Because I think maybe in Canada, there may be groupings. So in your experience and your exposure, given your scenario, do you know of any chat groups that one can connect with that can help her to deal with the loneliness of being away from family? Or even if you connect with family, they are not answering the questions to deal with
Absolutely.
at this current point in time.
I don't know personally of any chat groups, but I do know that she can reach out to me. And I do have resources that I have friends that are psychotherapists. I have friends that are social worker. I have friends that she can reach out to that I can share that information with, where she can get the help that she needs, or she can get the conversation started that she needs to have. So that I can provide. But I don't know of any chat groups. I know of resources in places, physical places where people could actually go to, but with COVID, that's not possible. But I do have connections to people in the industry, like therapists, mental health advocates as well, and where she can get some help, 100%. And she can, if she wants, she can start a conversation with me, because maybe we have something similar that we can talk about. Because sometimes you just need a friend. You just need somebody that you can trust, somebody that you could just share with whatever that's going on, that sometimes family members may not even understand, and you may not even want to share with family members because of the stigma of shame and fear that we really put on ourselves. So I'm putting myself out there, I'm available, and I will definitely give you my information, and she can reach out to me directly.
Okay, great. Because I'm thinking, I hear you say psychotherapists and mental health advocates, but these people may perhaps be only available during, say, perhaps a 9 to 5, 8 to 4. But I'm thinking that she may perhaps need more of just a chat. Hey, let's
Yeah,
talk.
I have friends that are social workers too, and me. Like I will put myself out there too, so she can
Okay,
definitely reach
okay,
out to me.
okay,
And
great.
if I feel like, and if she feels like she wants more help, she wants to go to a professional, then I will definitely put her in the position to find that professional for sure. Yeah.
Okay, thanks much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mr. Lane, for that. That's actually a very good question. By all means, if anyone has additional questions, feel free to come through. I want it to be an open chat where we can kind of discuss and talk as a people as a whole. I think it's great to have that type of feedback. And Stacy, man, that's really phenomenal that you're actually sitting down there and, you know, opening yourself up in your network. I think that's beautiful.
Because I know what it's like. And I wish I had that when I was going through my stuff. I know exactly what it's like.
Gotcha. Now, question, is there, first of all, again, if anyone has any more questions, feel free for coming in today and ask the questions away. Now, one you're talking about, that was one particular one on a singular one, but one situation that we're all really facing today is the quarantine. And so let me ask you, what do you think is the biggest or the most significant ways affecting our community? You know, we're having so many challenges now that we wouldn't even have thought possible. You know, talk about homeschooling, mercy. Mercy. I can relate to that one. Or, you know, just sometimes I get by a nerve and you just want to go for a walk, but you can't even go out. Or maybe it's, I don't know, the access to, you know, church or whatever it is. What do you think is the most significant, as part of this quarantine that we're dealing with as a community?
Oh, that is a very good question, and it's loaded. To think what is the most significant, I think it's the gathering. I think in our community, we enjoy having that space where we can gather, and whether it be church, whether it be at the barbershop, at the hairstylist, at the grocery store, like things that we can do to gather together. There are so many other things that I can list, but I think we're missing that connection of being around each other, being in a space that brings us joy. Some people may hate work, but there are others that love escaping. Now, there's so many different factors that I can list where that can affect us. For instance, we can talk about people that are going where home is not a safe place for them. It's not their safe haven. And school, church, work is an escape. But here I am staying at home and I'm struggling. I'm struggling because this is not the place where I leave home to escape, and home doesn't provide something safe for me. My mental health is being challenged. My emotional health is being challenged. My spiritual health is being challenged. So we have to think about those people as well. We can go back and we can think about people that are always on the go and find some kind of joy where they feel like their self-care is hustling. Their self-care is going out there working, having multiple streams of income, doing whatever they can. And maybe that hustling is something where it's more physical, where they have to be out in public. And now that is being challenged. What else can I list? There's so many factors, but I think the main thing, to piggyback back to your question, is the significant change is going out. It's really going out and the gathering. But we want to be political. Black people, we've been through so much, and we've had so many obstacles come our way, so many struggles that we have to face generation after generation after generation. And being locked down, locked away, is just another obstacle that we have been through. But where am I going with this without getting to that zone is we do have the strength. We do have the know-how, the ancestral knowledge that we can use to come out of this, but it's also a different time that we have to learn to cope. And I think it's really important that we are minding, that we are tending, that we're nurturing our mental health as well as our emotional health through this difficult time, because it's a new era, it's a new generation, but we've been through so much. When you see the protests of people that really want to go back to having the city open and we need this open, you really don't see a lot of us there, right? Struggle is something that we've dealt with, but this is not something that I want us to deal with in a way where we are putting our mental health at risk, or we're not tending to that. So I think at first, let's try to tend to that. And let's try to be compassionate. And if we can't have the physical gathering, like Elaine said, maybe we can create group chats. Maybe we can create a safe space where people can come together and people can talk. Let's try to do something more virtual. I love that they have the churches that are online. I think that is amazing. But maybe we can create spaces that we can talk and we can discuss. Does that even make sense to you? Are you trying to? I hope everyone that's watching, the participants are trying to.
Great, Stacy.
Can I piggyback on what you're saying?
Yes.
You speak about going out. And for me, citing my personal experience, I see it as the removal of my liberty. I understand totally why that is necessary. But what has come home to me specifically is the fact that I have been living by myself for 9+ years now with the death of my husband. All right. And I thought, okay, fine. I can cope with that because I'm living alone. So certain issues that the lockdown or the curfew may have created, no big thing. But what I have realized that COVID has forced it or taken it beyond just living alone. It has taken it beyond me not being able to go if I feel like going to a restaurant to just sit and eat, connecting with somebody else, because you go to the supermarket, hi, hello, and you're gone. You can't even stand and have a conversation. And so for me, it has pervaded every aspect of everybody's lives in ways that we never could have seen it coming.
That's true.
And yeah, so I sit here speaking with you. I mean, I can perhaps go on and on, but just from a personal standpoint, it has impacted me even greater. Now, normally I work from home. I live alone, but guess what? Even to jump in my car. So that you can't really do anymore. So my car sits in the garage and you have to confront the issue that, hey, where am I going? You know, because you can't, you can't go anywhere. So there is that now added dimension to persons who have lived alone for quite a while. But now there is that added component to the fact that they have to deal with. And so it's affecting the mind in a big way. You're seeing the four walls closing in on you. Perhaps sometimes you listen to all the TV you want to, you read all the books that you want to, all the inspirational books that you want to. But at the end of the day, or as it gets dark, okay, so.
You've raised something really important, Elaine, because I've said this before, and I think we are all in this storm together, but we're in different boats. We're all in it together, but there's different aspects to it. You have, for instance, for me, as a mental health advocate, I found myself struggling at first with this, really deeply struggling. For the most part, I'll have people randomly message me on social media or friends asking what are things that they can do to cope. And I'm firing advice. Meanwhile, I am really struggling. Like it was a struggle for me. I have anxiety and I'm an extrovert. I'm hardly ever home. I'm always out doing some things and just work. And that's how my anxiety pushes my ambition, to be very honest with you. And I found myself being stuck and not knowing where to go. And I'm also a new mom. My daughter just turned 1 a couple weeks ago. And I had all these elaborate things, this party that I wanted to do for everything that I wanted. And I find myself in a place where I was deeply challenged. And I didn't realize how much I was challenged until I did my first live talking about COVID and how to cope. And in that live, I actually started to cry because I was like, everybody checks in on the mental health advocate for advice, but how can I help myself? Mm-hmm. And so I had to sit and I had to revisit my own post, my own stuff that I've shared to help people, and read. And I felt like I was sitting in this room, everyone, and I had a conversation with my anxiety and said, listen, we need to work together now, because now you're not fuel an extrovert and somebody that's highly ambitious. Now the speed that I have, because I'm always going like this, now that needs to be contained. And how am I going to maintain this? So like I want to piggyback and say we are in the storm together, but we're in different boats, and nobody's boat is greater. Nobody's boat has more holes. We're all in this together, but let's try to help each other, you know? And I appreciate you saying that, because I never thought of the person that lived alone. And I thought that maybe introverts are having a field day with this, but I never thought about the person that, yes, lives alone, but I need to go out, I go and I do this, and that brings me joy. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Miss Elaine's from the sunny islands of St. Lucia right now. Yeah,
You're in St. Lucia. My daughter's.
I am, yes.
I was noticing the mountains and stuff. I'm like, okay, you're probably in the Caribbean. It's really beautiful in the background. I'm like, which part of Canada is this?
Well, let me ask you a question. To not only to you, Stacy, but to everyone on the line. You know, in the past when I've had stressful scenarios, there's things I usually, you know, fall on to kind of get me through. Sometimes, you know, I play soccer 2-3 times a week. Well, up until recently, you know, other things. But for me, songs. I love gospel jazz. That's my realm. I ran a jazz lounge for many years. But is there a song? Is there a poem? Is there something that you draw on when you're a deep point to kind of carry you through?
A song that saved my life when I was going through my depression is Shirley Caesar's "You'll Do It Again." And it's a song about hope. It's a song about knowing, okay, God is going to do it again. Remember that smile you had on your face, he's going to do it again. So what you're going through now, you may not understand it. You're not going to know when, you're not going to know how he's going to work around, but he'll do it again. And that song gave me hope. For the most part now, how am I getting through this? It's Bob Marley. And I love that Bob Marley's music can transcend throughout generations and time. And his music, it just fills up my home. It's a great start to my day. It's a great feeling to have. I actually read an article that talked about how the Black community can cope during COVID. And one of them talked about music and using music as a way of escaping, pretty much, you know. That's a great question. I wonder what the participants are saying. Like,
I was just about to ask the participants out there, what songs, I'd like to hear what songs, or is there a poem that any of you are drawing upon when you get through some challenging times, even in this quarantine here? Is there a particular song? I remember
if there is, leave it there in the comment section. I would love to see it. And yeah.
I want more than to leave it. Say it. Let's hear it.
Yes.
For me, when I was going through, I went to a very ugly divorce. And when I was doing so, I remember simple songs, man. Jesus Loves Me, Mercy. That song, when I would go through, you may not know why, may not know how, but he'll do it again.
Do it again. Yes.
There were so many tunes that I would sit down there and say would actually catch me through. What? For those that are on the line, which one, is there a song? Is there a poem that took you through? Love to hear it. And as we're doing that, we're going to transition, because we're about to transition to the next phase and, you know, get a good understanding maybe some of what can help and trigger. But before we go into that, is there any songs that stood out with anyone else? A poem, a thought, a phrase, a quote, anything? Yes, no, by all means, speak it out. Yes? Okay, all right, let's go. We'll keep going forward. So, Stace, let's get into some challenges here. Let me understand. mental health is a challenge within our community, both to children and to adults. What are some of the biggest triggers that may expedite mental health challenges? Well, either to a child or to adult.
That is a great question. Wow, some of the biggest challenges. One of the biggest challenge I find is a comparison game.
Mm.
You know, you see Mary, you see Peter have this, and you feel like you need to have this too. It's also another challenge is what society says. Like, I'm gonna say myself an example. I struggled around the age of 29, turning 30, because I felt like at 30 I need to have a house, I need to have kids, I need to have a husband, I need to have all of that. So I put that pressure on myself. And with putting that pressure on myself, I was noticing friends that are around the same age as I am, they had the things that I desire. So I played the comparison game. And I think one of the things that is a huge challenge for us, we compare and we feel like we probably need to get this, we need to have this too, like what is going on with me? And for kids, I find when I speak to kids a lot of it has to do social media and what they see. And they can come back to mommy and daddy, oh, I want this shoe, or I want this thing, or can't we go on vacation like I see Paulette do, or whatever. But it's a comparison game, right? And are you sorry, Antoine, I'm just looking at you. I don't know if everyone's hearing what I'm saying, but it's one of that challenge that we do face is a comparison game.
Interesting.
And that need to feel like we need to have this, or we need to accomplish this, or life isn't success. What is success, and how am I labeled as somebody that's successful? What do I need to have? And we're in this world where everything is rushed and everything is. I saw a quote that says something along the line of, people ask what you do so they can show you the level of respect to give you, or something along that line. So we're living in this new world where everything is rushed, and your success and how you're looked upon in the world is deemed on what you have and what you own. And so we tend to play that comparison game a lot, or that is just imposed on us. And it's challenging, and that is something that does challenge your mental health and evoke anxiety inside of you, and depression, because you're depressed because you don't have this or you don't have that, right?
Gotcha.
But I mean, depression comes in all different forms. I mean, your depression can start from grieving the loss of someone. There's so many things that can make you depressed. But I think one of those biggest challenges is that we do play a comparison game.
It's always easier to see and appreciate what someone else has, but you don't know the pain they took to get there.
And sometimes, Antoine, the comparison game starts with our own community, our own village, our own parents. Absolutely. That feel that you need to have this. You know, when I was 21, I did this and I did this. So it could be imposed at home. And that's why I stress how important home is, really about educating your mental health and making sure that home is a place that creates that safe space for children as young as 5, as young as 4. Like, start soon, start really early, you know, develop a healthy mindset with your kids. Check in with your kids, because they are the future of tomorrow. And we want to create healthy tomorrows, right? So let's start at home. Let's create safe space at home.
Perfect. I want to give a response. There's been some responses and songs that's carrying people through. We had Maya Angelou and Still I Rise Will Always Motivate Me. That was by Tanya St. Clair. Thank you, Tanya. Marcia says, Nothing But the Blood of Jesus and My Life is in Your Hands. Kirk Franklin. That was Marcia. And I think Donna had a question. Donna, are you still on? Donna, you still on? No? Okay, yeah, she said she had to leave. I wasn't sure if I caught her before she left. Yeah, I think those they're really important there. The comparison and really being put up against standards that I don't think are really fair is really causing some challenges.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, before we move on to the next thing, is what are tools that we can we've talked about some tools we can utilize, or let me say it differently, what is a way we can recognize if some of our loved ones are going through experience? Like you referenced that it was your roommate that identified that you had some challenges.
Yeah.
How can we recognizing someone else that they're having challenges if they don't know for themselves?
Sometimes you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you cannot. I'll tell you.
Is there things we
The
can't
friend,
look for?
you can't. Sometimes you can't, unless sometimes you can notice changes, like in a way a person could go as far as their dressing, in a way they're speaking, in like things that will trigger them, in how they're communicating, communicating the same thing, how they're moving, how their sleep patterns are. If you know them personally, or you can notice how a friend may, okay, I'm starting a new job, or I'm jumping to something else, But for the most part, because in the Black community, mental health, we wear it like a veil of shame, our sunglasses of shame that we wear. We hide it because we are so fearful that we are going to be dismissed or laughed at or looked upon as this is nothing. So we wear it, we hide behind it. And you can never tell. The person that's sometimes always on vacation, always hashtagging best life, always has the nicest car, always driving out, they could be struggling deeply, fighting a battle daily with their mental illness, and you will have no idea because of that stigma of shame, that rug that we keep sweeping the dust under, hiding it, because they don't feel safe, or they don't feel that there's a safe space or person that they can come and say, hey, something is wrong. And also, they may not even know what's wrong. They may not even be able to diagnose or can even tell what's wrong. So they mask their pain with a facade of happiness because they feel if they fake it, if I look happy, then everything will be okay. So it's a tough question, but people can hide it. I sure did.
So, all right. So in the scenarios where we can't have understanding, fair. But what if we do? What if we do suspect or we do see signs? Or what are key flaring signs? You said talk about change in dress. Well, that's relative. You know, someone could have discover a style. You know, someone.
Yeah.
What do we do then?
The key in dressing is very minimal, but if you definitely see short tail signs, have a talk with them.
But what were those short tail signs we should look out for?
Oh, okay. Without personalize it, because everybody goes through different ones.
Speaking.
For instance, somebody starts drinking a lot. Somebody starts smoking a lot.
Okay.
Start swearing a lot.
Okay.
Start straying away and not coming home.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know, little hints. It'd be like, man, just kill me now. Like little hints like that. Life is hard. The statuses that they put up, the memes that they share, little things are like short tail signs. And if you see that, then this is where you have to tread delicately and not use words where you feel like you're attacking them. You got to use words of comfort. And I keep saying safe space because that is so important. You know, sometimes I've had that question so many times, and people ask me, well, what can I do? How can I talk? One way is to probably sit down with them and say, let's watch something on mental illness. Let's watch this documentary. Let's listen to this podcast. Let's read something, and I try to get them to kind of open up to say, or you can share your own personal story if you have one. You know, just make sure you create a space where they feel like, okay, I can trust you, because trust is so important. And it's misused, you know?
For sure.
Because the last thing we want to hear is, now you're going to tell people that I'm going through this. And yeah.
So you mentioned trust. And I think you're hitting a key point. If we do recognize signs, where can we go in the community? You know, you talked about talking to someone or relate, but say you can't relate, say you don't know, where can someone in the community in terms of reach out to? Is there a resource that you know that's worked effective?
Yes, two places that I highly recommend. There's more too. I can send an email to, because I can't remember them off the top of my head. But two places. It's a place called Taboo, and it's Taboo.
Taboo.
So Taboo is around Malvern Town Center.
Okay. It's
a great place for someone to drop in and to ask to speak to a counselor or make an appointment. It's a great place for you to go and talk to. And then there's Women's Help and Women's Hand, somewhere downtown. I think it's around College Street. It's more for women, but it's like a safe haven where people can go and where women can go and speak. And then also, if you follow mental health advocates or you know of advocates in our community, don't be shy to reach out and say, hey, do you know of any resources, or can you help me find a place where I can go to talk to? You know of a male therapist or somebody, or a female, somebody that I can talk to, I can identify with. Don't be scared to ask. Don't be scared to reach out to these advocates, because for me personally, I'm not an advocate just by title. It's a responsibility that comes with that. But I'm not going to post everyday resources where you can go, but I do have them. So feel free to message me. And if I don't, I will put you in contact with somebody that does.
Well, then with that, I have one more question then, because as there are others might be like me that enjoys our male genitalia, is there some resources that may be for the males? Not, you mentioned one for females. Is there
Yeah,
one?
Taibo is for everyone,
Okay.
but I just know for the females because like I've done workshops with them, and it's like we've been in contact and exchanged contact, so I know of that place and I know of people that speak highly of them. So, but I can definitely find it in my resources, of course. Like I said, it's I don't remember off the top of my head, but
No
for
worries.
instance, my therapist is male, so I can definitely put someone in touch with my therapist.
Perfect. So again, if anyone has any more questions, please by all means say it through. I'm going to go into a last series of questions going out. Let me ask this. Coming out of quarantine, I foresee...
I think Gavin has a question. Gavin, do you have a question?
Sorry. Yes, I do.
Sorry, Gavin.
So I heard you guys talking about, how do you recognize if someone is in pain, if they need help, or whatever the case is. I was reminded just the other day there was a story that bodybuilding, I follow bodybuilding, professional bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And a very famous bodybuilder, he's always happy, he's always, fun loving. He's known as somebody who's outgoing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we talked about people showing signs like drinking and smoking and all that stuff. But then on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have the happy-go-lucky, always being supportive of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you separate? Would it just be a question of getting to know the individual to be able to determine how do you recognize which what I'm trying to find out, which one is that person to be able to know whether they need help or not?
That's a great question, and I think in that sense, sometimes you have to know the person, but also it's like what I was saying earlier. When you're asking the question of how you're doing, ask it with intention, not just to generalize. How are you doing? I'm fine. Because sometimes in that case, people are more open to speaking to strangers than loved ones about what they're actually going through. So I think if we mindfully say, okay, every time I'm going to ask the question, how are you doing? I'm going to ask it with intent, and I'm going to ask it with some care around it. But for the most part, you can't tell, Gavin. Like I said, like it's something that is easily masked because nobody knew what I was going through. It was just masked behind the brightest smile. So, but then again, it's you feeling safe. Is a person feeling safe to even talk? Is them even feeling like, is this even something I need to talk about? Is this even serious, or this too shall pass? Maybe let me drink some tea, let me work out even more, and I will feel better. I know it doesn't work like that, but we want people to get rid of that fear and to get the strength and the courage to start talking. It will do nothing to you to talk, honestly, to share. And if you share with one person and you find like, okay, they didn't help you, don't be scared to share again. It is your story. It is your journey. And sometimes sharing can save your life. You don't need to go through your pain by yourself. And for the most part, you are never alone. There's always people that are struggling too. But don't be shy to speak up. Don't be. Own it. And it's hard to say that because sometimes you don't even know what you're owning. But if you're feeling any sort of discomfort, don't be scared to talk it out.
So I want to thank you for that, man. Ironically enough, that was one of the songs, "You'll Never Walk Alone," was from Tracy there. But let me ask you this, as the last things we're wrapping up, we have about 5 minutes. Coming out of this quarantine here, recognizing that murder is still illegal in this country for those that are homeschooling children, and for those that go into their own personal struggles, what is the one thing you would like to see or you would like to leave with the community or change within the community as it going forth out of quarantine and going forward? What's the one last thing as we wrap up?
As we wrap up.
Yeah.
Okay, I will say this. Slowing down is not a bad thing. Taking the time to really appreciate and recognizing the simple things in life that matter. I hope everyone comes out of this with a better understanding and a better appreciation for life. I hope we come out of this not feeling that we need to jump into playing the comparison game or the rush game. I hope we come out of this knowing that our mental health, we're taking care of our mental health, we're nurturing our mental health. We are speaking about things that are bothering us. We're taking care of our emotional health. We're deepening our spirituality. And I hope we come out of this not feeling that we need to be productive. You do not. You don't need to start no business. You don't need to start no project. You don't need to start anything. Be still and be in this moment and take care of you. Really take care of you. And taking care of you starts with healing. Start healing. Start relearning and unlearning what was taught with you. Take this time to nurture your entire being. That's all I can really say.
And no, that's a phenomenal way to stop. Be still and know. Be still and know.
Yes.
You know, everyone, I really want to thank you guys. I want to thank you, Stacy. This was really informative. It was really helpful. It's a good avenue where we can sit down there and just hear things from a different perspective. It's a real challenge. As I said, both even prior to quarantine here, that's only a small aspect, but you've really helped us give us a good perspective. As we wrap up, is there any last question, any last comment anyone would like to say before we wrap up? We have about 3 minutes left. Any last comments? Yes, no, mute your mic.
I would like to jump on and just say thank you, Anton, for a great hosting a great session, and Stacy Ann, as usual, thank you so much for volunteering to do this. I think it's much needed for our community. May is Mental Health Month, so we're going to be putting on a few spots in our Ask the Professional to reflect that, so our community can learn a little bit. So thank you everyone for joining as well. If you don't mind, Gavin, can you share the next? Thank you. Our next session is this Thursday. We have Trudy German, and she's going to talk about strengthening your immune system and body during COVID-19. Trudy is a health and wellness expert. So we look forward to that. If you have any questions or any comments, feel free to email us at communications@bbpa.org. I will also have, if you email, I will respond. If you need Stacy Ann's contact, I can share that contact with you. All right, so that's it for me. Over to you, Anton, to close.
Well, there was, it really takes a village to raise a child. Some of the acronyms, growing up, I won't lie to you, I was raised with my parents, but I had a lot of influence from my grandmother, and she used to say this one phrase, and growing up, I didn't understand my grandmother. A lot of things she said didn't make any sense to me. You know, you got to send me to Am's house, and it didn't make sense, but the reality is, as a community, we'll get through this. We've gotten through so much other stuff. It's just really, let's not be ashamed. Let's take this as an opportunity, this time to sit back and relax, understand and reflect, gather information we're learning, and use it to make ourselves stronger coming out. I wish you all the best. I'm glad that everyone came down here. Thank you for taking the time. Stacy, you're phenomenal. You're a phenomenal guest. I thank you for that.
You're a great host. Thank you. This is awesome.
You're very kind. This is my first one, so I appreciate the positive reinforcement. By all means, I thank everyone that's on the line as well. With that, have a good day, everybody.
Have a good one. Bye.